I play smarter. I invest with Morning Line. You build your stable. When they race, you earn. Buy, sell, trade, anytime. Morning Line. Own the game.
Hi, everyone. David Aragona and Mike Beer here taking a look at the penultimate race on Breeders' Cup Saturday. Race 11 is the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. This one going that 1 mile distance, one lap of the Del Mar Oval for the older horses. But to handicap these Breeders' Cup races, Daily Racing Form is going to be your best companion, and you can check out all of the handicapping tools that we have on offer in this Breeders' Cup package. You can save $38 of the value on either the Players package or the VIP package, the latter of which includes those clocker reports from Mike Welsh and his team to let you know how these horses are doing coming into these Breeders' Cup races on Friday and Saturday. Check out more information about the Breeders' Cup packages from Daily Racing Form at shop.drf.com or by using that QR code on screen. Let's throw up the field of 10 that was entered for this Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. And Mike, I think we're going to have a clear-cut favorite in this race in the number 3, Nysos, a horse that at different points during this year was talked about a potential contender for the Breeders' Cup Classic. Didn't really pan out that way because he missed a major summer test going 10 furlongs. So they've sort of had to take a step back, target this race for the end of his season. But on a raw ability standpoint, he is the one to beat.
Yeah, no doubt. He's had his issues along the way, to be sure. That's something that you always want to keep in the back of your mind when you're talking about a horse going off at a short price. But listen, he has as much talent as any horse that is currently racing in the United States right now. And ultimately, he didn't make the Classic. Ultimately, this might be his best distance anyway.
Intriguingly, Baffert has also entered 2 other horses in this race to accompany Nysos, Goal Oriented, and Citizen Bull, the latter of which has a lot of early speed. And we'll take a look at the pace projector for this race. The Dirt Mile is a race that can be susceptible to fast paces, Mike. A lot of horses want to get position going into that clubhouse turn that comes up very quickly. Jockeys tend to send in this race. And with Full Serrano, who won this race last year, being drawn right alongside Citizen Bull, I mean, it kind of feels like the two of them have to hook up at some point.
Yeah, I did think there's a chance this pace does get really fast. I mean, the pace projector even has Goal Oriented in there. I mean, you don't feel like both Baffert horses are going to go for the lead on a fast pace, but Goal Oriented is a fast horse in his own right, and he's got inside position.
And Nysos, he'll be just fine however this pace develops because he's pretty versatile and he's shown the ability to rate behind horses early. Let's go through this field from the rail out, beginning with a long shot. The number 1 Will Take It. He was an upset winner of a race going this distance at Churchill Downs back in June. Came back off a minor layoff to get on another prep at Churchill going the 1-turn mile and was just pretty disappointing in the ACAC last time. He did stumble at the start, Mike, but after that, he really didn't have a major excuse, and he's going to have to run a lot better to be competitive against this field.
We'll see if he can bounce back to one of those better, efforts in the spring and summer that he was running there when he was, he sort of traded decisions with Tumbarumba recently. I don't know, even if he bounces back to one of his good performances, I just don't think it's going to be good enough for him to come out on top in a race like this. Although, a fast pace could certainly help his chances.
One of those 3 Baffert runners is the number 2, Goal Oriented, a relatively lightly raced horse who's been tried in some pretty tough spots during his career. They participated in 3 consecutive grade 1s with him in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th race of his career. So they threw him to the wolves right after his first couple of starts, Mike, and he didn't handle it initially in the Preakness. He got into some well-publicized trouble with journalism that day and faded at the end. He did run pretty well the last couple of times in the Haskell, where he battled back along the inside to finish 3rd in a photo finish with journalism and Gosker, and then last time the Pennsylvania Derby. That race, it makes me wonder if maybe the turn back to a mile could really work for this horse, because he travels so well into his races, and it feels like once they set him down past the mile marker, he almost has nothing left to give. And maybe a horse like that is going to be able to finish a little stronger, cutting back to the mile distance.
Yeah, I like the same thing about him. I feel like he's really going to benefit from going a little bit shorter. And listen, he actually did run pretty well in all 3 of those grade 1 races early on. You feel like maybe Baffert rushed him into those races, and he probably did, but I get it, man. When I watch his first 2 career starts, I see it. This horse has a lot of talent, so I'm not surprised that they had high hopes for this horse. Maybe this isn't going to be the right spot either. This is not an easy race, but this horse is pretty good.
The number 3, Nisos, is going to be the favorite in this race. He's really done very little wrong in his career. Won 5 of 6 starts. His only loss was a narrow defeat and a blanket finish in a very competitive edition of the Grade 1 Churchill Downs. And also, that was his first start in over a year. They picked a very ambitious race for him to return from that lengthy layoff. This horse was talked about as the Derby favorite going back to the 2024 season. It obviously didn't pan out. He missed a lot of time with an issue. And as Mike said earlier, he's been tough to keep on the racetrack. He was supposed to run the Pacific Classic, had to be scratched from that race, missed some time, was supposed to then run on the Goodwood, missed that race as well. And he's going to come into this off workouts. They've been very impressive workouts, and this is a horse who has shown that he can get ready off workouts before. But you do always wonder, Mike, if the setbacks eventually catch up with a horse like this.
Exactly. Again, as we talked about in the open, you always have to concern yourself when horses have issues like that, especially when they're going to ask you to take a short price on them. Here's his most recent race, and this is a good illustration, too, of what you were talking about when we had the pace projector up there, David. A fast pace is not going to affect this horse. He will sit right in behind horses and wait until it opens up, as he did here. And he is just ridden out at the end of this race. Way too good for these horses. Again, I mean, maybe I'm just, oversimplifying this race. I think this is one of the most talented horses in the country. And if he shows up and runs his A race here, I'm not sure these horses can beat him.
I've got to say, Mike, it hasn't been proven to me yet. I'm not opposed to that point of view, but I wanted to see him do it against tougher competition because the fact of the matter is the fields that he beat in both the Triple Bend and the San Diego pale in comparison to this one. And while he faced some good horses in that Churchill Downs, he lost that race, and it was off a layoff, but it's proven he's vulnerable at this level. So I'm taking a slightly negative view of him, but I'm not opposed to the view that he might just be better than this field. The number 4, Mystic Dan, he's kept really good company this year. He's tried the Grade 1 level. He's faced horses like Mind Frame. He faced off against Saudi Crown, who's a very good miler earlier in the year, lost a tough decision to him. He's not quite good enough to be competitive in a race like the Breeders' Cup Classic. So I think they're wisely dodging that spot. And while he hasn't proven that he's quite at his best going the 1 mile distance, this is the right kind of level for him, Mike. I guess my biggest concern with him is he's a horse that has run a lot of big races at Churchill Downs, getting the same kind of trip in all of them, riding the rail. And he hasn't proven to me that he can take that race elsewhere consistently.
Yeah, the thing that I really like about him the least is just that it does feel like he's that horse who wants a certain kind of trip, and when he doesn't get it, it just doesn't seem like he fires his best shot. That being said, I do want to sort of give him the credit he deserves for really putting together a nice campaign this year as a 4-year-old, because after he won the Derby and it sort of felt like he was an opportunistic winner of the Kentucky Derby. He ran so poorly in a bunch of subsequent starts that it just felt like maybe he was never going to get it back together again. And to his credit, he has.
The number 5, Tumbarumba, didn't run that badly at a big price in this race last year. He contested the pace along with Full Serrano, faded to 4th, but was not disgraced. Mike, this horse doesn't win all the time. He's a really hard trier. If he is in the mix at the quarter pole, he's going to try his hardest to be in the mix at the wire. He does not go down without a fight. But from a raw ability standpoint, I just don't think he's quite as talented as some others in this field.
Yeah, great. Tumbarumba he's a really cool horse. I'm not betting him in races like this.
You know the thrill of picking a winner. But instead of just running to the window for a quick payout, I play smarter. I invest with Morningline. Morningline is a more sophisticated way to use your skill and bankroll without putting it all at risk. Build your stable. When they race, you earn. Buy, sell, trade, anytime. Keep the action rolling without burning your bankroll. This is playing the ponies, elevated like a boss. Morningline. Own the game.
The number 6, Full Serrano, he is the defending champion of this race. And Mike, we should mention, while this might not be as good a field as the Breeders' Cup Classic, we do have a Kentucky Derby winner, a Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner, and a Breeders' Cup Classic winner all lining up in this field, which is pretty cool. Full Serrano, the winner of last year's Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. And coming back for his 5-year-old or 6-year-old campaign, I should say, he's only made 2 starts. One of those was a very easy allowance win at Del Mar. Then they tried to stretch him out to 9 furlongs in the Goodwood. I think it's proven at this point he really doesn't want to go a step beyond a mile, and he showed that last time. They're getting back to basics here, the race that he won last year, but I'm a little concerned about what trip he might get with Citizen Bold drawn right outside of him.
Yeah, I don't think a fast pace that obviously wouldn't benefit this horse because he does want to be involved right from the start. He's 3 for 3 going the 2-turn mile here at Del Mar, and they're all really good performances, including the Breeders' Cup mile last year. I mean, maybe it's at least worth pointing out, David, that he did earn the 104 buyer winning this race last year, and he did not make the lead in that race. He was beaten to the lead by a long shot. He had to sit off another horse, took over at the top of the stretch and kept going. So maybe he can do it that way if he has to, but I would be concerned about the pace.
Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention when I was going through that list of accomplishments of the winners of the prior Breeders' Cup races in here, the number 7, Citizen Bull, he's a Breeders' Cup juvenile winner. So you've got 3 prior Breeders' Cup winners to go along with the Kentucky Derby winner in this race. As for Citizen Bull, the other speed that's going to contest the pace with Full Serrano, they got him back to the winner's circle last time in the shared belief, Mike. He was only facing 2 rivals. We could take a look at the stretch run of that race. And yes, he was visually impressive doing it. And when you start to go through his form, you can make the case that he really is just a true miler and nothing else. Because when you isolate his races between a mile and 1.16 on the dirt, he is 4 for 4 over those distances. A little shorter, maybe he gets outrun a little longer, exposed to stamina limitations. I just wonder if he's going to be able to produce the triple-digit buyer that's probably necessary to win this race with another fast horse drawn inside of him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm with you. I'm just taking the position that shorter is better for this horse. The mile maybe is the perfect distance. That makes sense to me. But he's also a horse who just if he doesn't make the lead in his races, and in most of the time it's a comfortable lead, he just doesn't win. He doesn't really run that well. So that's a concern for me with other fast horses. And it's just hard for me to want to give him any credit for that race that we just watched. Because as you put it, was a 3-horse field, but really it was a match race between him and a totally overmatched Smooth Cruising, because Gaming his stablemate was a total no-show in there.
The number 8, Chancer McPatrick, he was actually beaten at a pretty short price in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile that Citizen Bull won last year. And ever since then, Chancer McPatrick has just been a little bit of a disappointment during his 3-year-old season. He did get 1 win in a restricted stakes this summer at Saratoga, but his surrounding efforts at the graded stakes level, they've just left you wanting a little bit more. I will say, Mike, his last race in the Allen Jerkins, in a lot of ways, was the most encouraging of all of his races, at least from my perspective so far this year, because that was a really strong field, and he was actually firing at the end. He was producing a better finish than we've seen from him in a few of the races earlier this year, and it led me to believe that maybe that distance between 7 furlongs and 1.125 could be right for him. He's getting to go the mile here. He's probably doing it in a race with some pace, and we'll see how much they come back to him, but I'm just trying to make the point that I could see him picking up pieces in here. I don't like him on the win end.
Yeah, I guess it's the one thing they haven't tried so far this year, right? Because it feels like even his connections don't really know what they want to do with him anymore. He didn't stretch out effectively. They tried to turn him back in the Woody Stevens. That didn't work. They stretched him back out again. He ran a little better. They cut him back again last time, and it ran better. So maybe this is right in the middle here, the 2-turn, 1 mile distance. Maybe it'll work for him, especially in a race with some paces, which is what he really wants.
The number 9, Touch of Destiny, has done absolutely nothing wrong in his racing career so far. He is 6 for 6, all of his prior starts in Uruguay. He's won all of those races by open lengths. He does appear to be a front-running type, Mike, and I wonder if that's going to be a problem in a race that has other speed drawn to his inside that just looks faster. He is totally unproven at this sort of level. He's switching into the barn of Michael McCarthy for this race. I've watched a few of his recent workouts. It looks like he's been the target for journalism in a few of those, and journalism has just clearly outworked him in the morning. So not really sure what to expect from him, but he is relatively unexposed.
Yeah, I saw some of those workouts too. It didn't give me high hopes for this horse. We'll see what he does. He's obviously some kind of a wild card here. You just have no idea what you're going to get. Personally, I'll be pretty surprised if he's competitive here.
Rounding out the field on the outside is the number 10, White Abario, the 2023 Breeders' Cup Classic winner, and he's been struggling to get back to that form ever since. I will say, Mike, we did see a glimpse of that Breeders' Cup Classic winning form when he won the Pegasus World Cup earlier this year. He beat Locked when he was in very good form at that time and did so running away by over 6 lengths. That was down at Gulfstream, and he has produced most of his best efforts at Gulfstream. You can say that fairly. But, Mike, they have put this horse in some really tough spots since then, running in the Met Mile, then the Whitney, then the Jockey Club Gold Cup. And I'll say, I don't think he got great trips in either of those last two Saratoga races. I mean, obviously the Jockey Club Gold Cup, I mean, the photos have been circulated. His jockey got basically bounced off his back in the middle of that, the first furlong of that race by Irad Ortiz, basically sharing the mount for a brief second as he was falling off mind frame in that race. And then two back in the Whitney, he was like legitimately 5 wide all the way around the far turn of that race. He just lost so much ground. Look, he was never winning either of those races, but Sierra Leone, Antiquarian, Highland Falls, they're better horses than a lot of the rivals that he's facing in here. He's turning back to a mile. I think that distance works for him. Maybe he's not good enough to win a race like this anymore, but I do think this could be the right spot.
I can't really argue with any of that stuff. Certainly, obviously, if he shows up here and runs his A race, he could win here. I just haven't seen it, Dave. I have not seen him run his A race in a really, really long time. I'm going to disagree with your take on the Whitney 2 starts back. I thought he got a perfectly good trip. I thought Irad did everything right in that race, just followed fierceness into the race coming off the turn there. And White Abarrio just came up empty, in my opinion, there. This horse has just totally lost me. I think I always thought he was a bit of a phony. Even when he had that big year a couple years ago, I thought none of it was legitimate, and he's done nothing to push me off of that position recently. I just could never bet this horse.
Everybody, before we get to picks for this race, we want to let you in on a little secret. Morning Line is a private SEC-regulated marketplace where approved participants can trade licensed interest in racing's biggest stars like Torpedo Anna and Derby hopeful Blackout Time. Be part of championship bloodlines. Visit morningline.io. Buy, sell, trade, own the game. Let's go to our picks for this Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. In full disclosure, when these picks popped up on the screen before Mike and I started recording, and Mike saw that I picked White Abarrio, his response was, "Oh no!" And maybe that's the right response, because White Abarrio has disappointed at the Grade 1 level a number of times this year. I just see pace in this race. I think a mile works for this horse, even though he hasn't necessarily produced the record at this distance in the past. And I believe I'm going to get a price this day. I'm taking a shot with him. But most of all, Mike, I was just a little skeptical of the horse that you put on top. And I admit I could be totally wrong about being against Nisos here.
Yeah, listen, I probably put White Abarrio right in the winner's circle with that comment. But, we'll just see what happens. He's just a horse again. He's just totally lost me. Maybe I just oversimplified this thing, David. And Nisos does have all those questions. Or he hasn't answered all those questions that he needs to answer. When I watch this horse run going all the way back to his 2-year-old year, I just think he's one of the most talented horses in the country. And assuming Baffert has him close to right for this race, I just think he's going to win.
We'll see on Saturday if Mike is right about Nisos' ability. He put him on top 3-6-2-4 for Mike and 10-2-8-3 for me in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, that penultimate Breeders' Cup race on Saturday at Del Mar. Good luck if you're playing the races this Breeders' Cup weekend.